Welcome to Cypress Creek Adventures. This week we're going to talk about cutting up a tree safely to create firewood and all the steps it takes to do that and safety tips, and we'll break this whole tree down start to finish. So stay tuned. I have this tree on my property that fell over. It survives numerous storms and big winds, and one morning I came out and it was just laying here in the yard and was still had its leaves, and so I let it lay here for a while and let the leaves fall because it's a lot easier to cut this tree up. So I want to show you, we just kind of broke off here at the bottom. So we're going to break this down and piece by piece and turn this tree into firewood. So we're going to have to take and cut all these limbs out, all these little limbs, and we have to do this safely and methodically, and we don't want the tree to roll over. We need to take all this brush off first. So as you can see, it was quite a substantial tree. It's a maple tree, and it's got a lot of small limbs, so it's going to take a little while to break this down, and we'll do this in sections and do it safely. So I want to point out a couple things before I start. This tree obviously has been broken off. If this tree had been uprooted, we'd have to be very careful that how much weight we take off at the top of this tree, because it'll stand itself back up in the hole with the big pile of dirt that's still attached to it. Now here, obviously, it is broken off and it's barely hanging on by a couple pieces. But what's holding this tree now, as you can see, we'll go up here, and these two great big limbs here are kind of like knees, and this tree is sitting right on those two limbs. Everything else up here with this whole tree is just hanging free. So we're going to trim all this back, and then the last things that'll get cut will be these two big ones here, and then I'll talk more about that when we get to that point. So I want to tell you a little bit about the equipment that I use. I use this Husqvarna 445. It's more of a professional size saw. It's got a lot of power, 18-inch bar, and I always carry my little axe. This axe actually I made, and maybe I'll put a little picture up that shows the axe before I made it. This here is called a cant hook, and I've carried that almost for the last 40 years, and when I've been cutting firewood, I've carried that right with me. And also we have some safety equipment here. I just want to point out that I have some ear protection and eye protection, and I like the glasses I wrap around the corner so that the limbs happen to whip you, it doesn't hit you right in the eye. So this is equipment that I use, and so we'll get ready to start this top and get all this brush and stuff cut out of this tree. So I've gotten to this point here where I've cleaned out most of this middle here. And this limb here in the middle where I've got it pared down to just usable wood is how I'll get all the rest of these done. And as you can see, I keep moving the brush out of my way and wood so that I'm not tripping over anything. I've got a saw in my hand, you know, and so got to be safety conscious first. Take your time. The most important thing about my saw is I keep it very sharp. And the saw, I haven't even run it wide open yet. We'll just run it about half speed. And when we get on some thicker, you know, bigger wood, then yeah, we need some more power. But it's safer than standing out here and just revving and revving. And it's just not necessary. But here's what I've accomplished this afternoon. And we got some small wood piled up and got all that hairy limbs off the bottom here. One more limb over here on the other side that needs to be trimmed back. Now I'll knock off these couple high ones and then we'll go for the big wood that needs to be split. So that'll be tomorrow. So stay tuned. Well, we're at the next day. As you can see, I finished taking down the other couple limbs and we're almost down here to just the main body of the tree. And we got everything cleaned up and all the small wood and some of the little bit of the larger wood that I encountered. We've got it cut to lengths. So we'll be back here when we got a little bit more. So as we talked about earlier, we have these two limbs here is what the tree is sitting on. And everything else that I took didn't have any weight on it at all. And so we're to the point now where we're finished taking that one little limb off and a couple other little limbs here. And then we're going to cut this off and we'll be back when we have more. I wanted to show how to break this tree down so that you're safe and you know which way your limbs and stuff are going. Now, this great big arm here, see, I cut about a foot or 10 inches from where the crotch is. And I did that all the way along as I go. So I've left the last one here and I want to show you what I'm doing here. As you can see, we cut right here. I'm getting ready to cut this off, and then I have a safe zone from here back to where the cut is. And then we'll just let this fall away and I'll be out of the way. And then all you do is come back here at the main body and just cut this off, and it'll be just one piece of wood. I wanted to explain what this cant hook is all about. It has a spear on the end and a hook right here. In a sawmill, they would cut the log and run it through the mill, and then they need to turn it and cut the next side. And then when they get it all squared up, they might have to flip it again when they in an unautomated sawmill. So what you do, and what I use it for, is to turn this log just like this. And I have a lot of leverage, so I can move a pretty big log. When we cut through here and cut it in sections, instead of taking a chance of cutting it on the ground, I make the few cuts over here, roll the log over, cut the other sides. Okay, one thing I wanted to mention was the length of the wood that you cut. It depends on whether you're in a fireplace or a wood stove. For me, I can take up to about a 28-inch piece because I have an end loader. But some people have a side loader and it takes a little shorter log, usually around 15 inches. So a lot of this wood I'm cutting a load for my friend, and not to sell, but just as a favor. And so a lot of this wood here I've cut a little shorter than I would for myself. So that's an important thing to think about, because if your wood's too long, of course it's not going to fit in your stove. But in a fireplace you'll be fine, but you still need to keep track of what length it is when you're cutting it up. So now I'm ready to flop this log on the ground. And my plan is I've got this all taken loose. And this is just touching here on this very front. But I'm going to cut this broken piece off before I cut it off at the stump. Because this is not holding a whole lot of weight. And I'm hoping that when I do that, I'm going to cut it off down here lower first and see how it works. I'm going to cut this off And then when we do that, then the log should come this way. But we're going to cut this off at the bottom here last. And what we need to do is get this log on the ground, because you know, you can't cut it up this high. Okay, as you saw, the tree rolled over pretty far. I've been cutting wood for 40 years at least, either for myself or helping others. I've been around a lot of trees, a lot of situations, but that still doesn't make it any more safe or actually dangerous. So if you're not familiar with how to do this stuff, I suggest you get somebody that's professional to get this on the ground for you. I'm not saying that they would do it the same way. They probably bring, you know, a whole bunch of equipment in and stuff to do it. But for me, this worked, and I was very cautious and anticipated what the tree was going to do. So I'm happy with the results. We have it here on the ground, and we'll finish cutting this up, and we'll have some very nice firewood. So we're going to conclude this week, and hope that's been helpful and entertaining as well. I'm not the biggest comedian or whatever, but I do enjoy myself and being able to share these things with you. And if you have any questions about how to do this, leave your comments below. I want to thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. We'll talk about how to split this wood and store it, and the safety tips to do that. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell and share this channel. God bless. We'll see you next week.